all, welcome back to my channel. So the day has finally come where I will be showing you how I made my Fallout T60 Power Armour helmet. This helmet is not 100% accurate, I know that, but I have done my best to make it as close as damn possible. The paint job will come at a later date in the future once I've completed the full armour build. My plan is to kind of do the painting all in one go this time. I know that's not normally how I've done it in the past, but here we are, it's a new me.
Lastly, I want to give a huge shout out to Much Props. If you haven't already, please check his channel out. It was his T45D helmet build and free pattern he supplies to everyone that has got me to where I am with my T60. I just tweaked areas where needed, so thank you Much Props if you see this. The link to his video is in my description below. Like with any project, you have to start with a strong foundation. I used Much Props' free template pattern. Thomas mentioned in his video that the helmet was slightly on the larger side for him, so the only adjustment I made to this part was that I reduced the overall scale to 90% before printing. I used 6mm foam for the base, and don't forget to flip the pattern pieces over for the other side of the helmet when cutting out. Here are the foundation pieces cut out. The triangular sections on each piece must be glued together first to create the curves before being glued to one another. I recommend using a heat gun and a dome-shaped object such as a bowl to curve the pattern pieces prior to gluing. This will reduce the strain on the seams when attaching together. This is where I began to adapt the pieces to look closer to a T60 model than the T45D. I started by extending the eye overlay to extend further down the mask. Next, I built out above the eyes. If you have a thicker foam, please use that and cut the edges at a 45-degree angle rather than doing the fiddly way like myself. However, I wanted to use the scraps I had laying around, which meant this part took a little more effort. To cut the top section, I drew out a rectangular piece measuring 17 by 5 cm and cut out a slightly larger piece in 6mm foam to apply from underneath on the inside. Due to the circular ears either side, I wanted to work out what I needed to cut and where. To do this, I applied cling film and covered in masking tape. Please ignore the different colours, I did run out halfway, and drew a rough pattern on top. I did enlarge the filter cap to a 7cm circle. This meant I also had to extend the side piece too. This was just a personal choice that I wanted to do. I used my trusty pyrography tool to etch the detailing in approximately halfway through the 10mm foam. I used contact adhesive to glue the two together, and once attached to the front I applied a foam seam filler to ensure this filter was thoroughly secured to the mask. If you don't like circles, this build is probably not for you. Thankfully, if you grab a circle cutter like myself, this will save your sanity a little. I used a Dremel to smooth the edges, however, as the blade on my tool did struggle with foam over 6mm in depth. For the hose connector discs, I began by using 10mm foam and Much Props' original pattern. Little life lesson now, don't settle if you aren't happy. After I cut out my 4 pieces for the hose connector, I felt they looked a little underwhelming compared to the rest of the mask. It may have had something to do with me spontaneously enlarging the filter cap, but that's okay. I gently pulled them off and added an additional tier. Following the same technique as I did for the hose connectors, I cut out 2 8cm and 2 6.5cm circles for the ears. Using the pyrography tool again, I carved out more detailing to look like dials before applying to the main helmet using contact adhesive. I did cut the nose bridge out of 4mm foam instead of 10, as I didn't want the main foam strip to be any thicker than this, and I wanted the nose bridge to hide behind it. For the front facial strip, I used 4mm foam, just less than 1cm in width, and cut the ends at a 45-degree angle for a gentle slope. For the various panel pieces on the helmet, like this one, I originally created them by using the cling film and masking tape technique featured earlier. I used a mixture of 2mm and 4mm foam. This was the step I was most excited for, as to me this was when the helmet really started to take its shape. I bought 10mm and 15mm foam dowels for the pipework. With the 15mm sized rods, I cut them into 0.5cm discs, applied as symmetrically as possible either side, and using my Dremel created a crevice for the other rod to sit in comfortably. To help reduce strain on the curves of the rods, I inserted some craft wire to either end before bending into place, attaching to the helmet. Next were the lower tubes either side of the mask. I used the same thickness rods, but this time etched some more details in using the pyrography tool first. Then I added a fine strip of 2mm foam around the area I connected the 2 rods together, to not only add more detailing but blend the seam in better. I also cut the end of the 15mm rods at a considerable angle to make it fit flush against the helmet. Here up top you can see Much Prop's original pattern. I have altered it slightly for the T60 but continued to use 6mm foam. I also used the back canister side pattern along with the reticle base piece to create my reticle attachment. After repeating the same technique I used on the other earpiece, I used craft wire to attach the reticle to the arm before using a strip of 2mm foam to secure them together. For the scope itself, I again wanted to use the existing foam I had, so added 2mm foam around my 15mm foam rod to increase the thickness. I used 2mm foam for all added details from the cone to the strips. I made my own pattern to connect the scope to the reticle arm out of 4mm foam. This gave the sturdiness required but also the flexibility needed to wrap around the scope. It felt a little plain for me, so I added a couple of additional strips of foam on top. I wanted to give my helmet an increased three-dimensional quality to the front, like the true T60 design. I chose to use foam clay to help build this up. Once dried, I used my foam seam filler to blend the edges and help keep both parts secured. I added 4 10mm rod discs and wrapped a strip of 2mm foam around each one to complete this section. Using a hole punch and 2mm foam, I cut out multiple small discs to use as my bolts. I applied using super glue before using my pyrography tool to add the centre detailing. The only adjustment I made to the original patterns was an extension to the holder front. I tripled its length, and instead of using 4mm foam, I used 2mm as I wanted to wrap it completely around the canister tube. Again, using a heat gun prior to this step really helped glue the ends together. For the finer details, I did do my own thing using 2mm foam strips because why not? Before I added the tubes, I drilled 2 holes either side of the tank and fed through a foam rod. I wanted to ensure the shape would be kept as sturdy as possible with these in the centre of the gas mask hoses. I would have used the same size foam rod all the way round, however I ran out, so I combined with my smaller 10mm rod. Finally, it was time to add the piece de resistance. I bought 2 gas mask hoses online and cut the metal components off before feeding over the foam rods and attaching to the helmet using contact adhesive. I then applied strips of 2mm foam around each connection to make the seams look neater. And here we are, my T60 foam Power Armour helmet prior to priming and painting. Thanks for watching.